Welcome back to the SkyTy Council. The council's in session.
Today we're talking Game of Thrones because that's half our show anyway. So
See, like every time we talk about it, it's like you think that, like, it's 50 Star Wars and 50 Thrones. And I feel like it's like,
it's a good chunk of Star Wars.
yeah,
a
for
good chunk of
sure.
Thrones,
But
because I
don't
think
tell
there's
them
some-
that. They don't know that. Like, don't, it could be more. It could always be more. I don't want to sell them false hopes.
It could be other stuff too.
Anyways, okay. So for this episode, we're gonna be talking about House Stark and its fall. So kind of just going into like how it all went wrong. And it's a really tragic arc for that house.
And I think we watched it for the first time a couple of years ago because we were late to the party, sure. But then we did a rewatch this past year, and we felt very differently about some of the situations. So that's why we were so intrigued, because at first we were blown away by certain scenes that happened. Spoiler alerts, just a heads up.
Okay.
There are spoilers. So if you haven't seen Game of Thrones, like the 1%,
Then you need to.
I don't know why you haven't. It's some of the greatest stories. So,
Yeah.
but
So
yeah.
no, like you were saying, like now that we've warned them about spoilers, you should be gone if you haven't seen it. But things like the Red Wedding, which we'll get into, but like I remember watching that the first time and saying like how could this be happening? What, like, they don't deserve this. They don't. Or you always like my boy Rob.
Rob.
So the first time we watched the Red Wedding, and like no time is like your first time watching it.
No. It's hard to explain. It's awful.
Yeah, we sat in silence after the episode. We were just like, and then we actually, so Tyler's brother had seen it, and I made you text him, and I was like, just because I try not to be the person that, like, if my favorite character dies, like, oh, I'm not watching this anymore.
Sure.
But it's like everybody died, so I was like, can you text your brother and ask him, like, is the show still good after the Red Wedding? Do you remember that? And he was like, it's
"That's
amazing
good."
afterwards.
He was like, you're just going to switch who you like as a character, because that's where John technically starts to emerge.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, you just love Rob. Rob the entire time is like, he's the man. He's the guy.
Yes.
And, like, that's the perfect leader. That's the guy who I want to follow. That's the guy I want to see run in Westeros. It's like, yes, 100% him all the way.
Yeah.
Good man. Let's go. And then they take it away from you and you just go, all right.
So maybe we should back up a little bit, because the fall really starts, like the fall of House Stark starts with Ned Stark.
Yes.
Like last episode, it's the last
episode for
season 1. That was shocking too. Like that. Are you serious?
I think it was shocking, but it was also like, I wasn't surprised, because I'm sitting there going, okay, what's the point? Like, what's the point? If you sit there and think about it, he is the reason for the entire rest of the seasons. They always mention him.
Yes.
He is always brought back upon. They
It's the
say
main catalyst.
he is supposed to be the most loyal, the most honorable, the most honest, everything, the entire thing.
Like,
he
he's
is
the guy.
He's the best man of the entire show. You're supposed to live up to that guy. That's the thing.
And I feel like he's like, well, because he died so early, he's stayed that way. And you would think that the one the one dishonorable thing that he ever did was John, and then you later come to find out that like that's not even true.
It's not the case.
And actually, by lying about him to even Catelyn,
right.
like he's just that guy. Like he's the most honorable person in the whole thing. But how do you think that moral code that he had, like, how do you think that sealed his fate?
Unfortunately, it ended poorly. Like, but at the same time, it's like he did call out to Joffrey and say, like, I'll go to the wall and do that thing. Like, I was wrong, you're right. And because he was kind of trying to save his life, but
Yeah.
it just, we all know how Joffrey is, and it was terrible. But what do you think?
I think it was. Thank you for asking.
Sorry.
I'll hear Tyler like talking to his friends, and they're like asking questions, and I'm like, babe, yeah, ask them a question back. It's okay. I think it turned into, unfortunately, like Ned's honor versus politics. Like he really was just too good of a man for King's Landing. King's Landing apparently can like chew up and spit anybody out, even Ned Stark. And like he ultimately he just lost the game. Like I think
The Game of
the
Thrones.
Game of Thrones. Oh, no, he did though. He was like, unfortunately, it's like you're the first loser. Maybe Robert was. Maybe Robert was the first
Robert
loser
Baratheon.
of the Game of Thrones.
In a way.
Because Cersei took his ass out with the like giving him all the alcohol and then like sending him hunting. So well, having her cousin like having is it Lancel? Yeah.
Yes, Lancel.
Give him all the alcohol and send him out. So you don't catch it upon your first watch. You catch stuff like this upon your second watch, and it's just like, damn, like he was so honorable, and you just can't. John later proves that you can be that way, but not without getting your hands like really dirty. And by like John made mistakes throughout the series that he was able to like recover from. Ned unfortunately made like one or two like really big mistakes and then got cut. And then you hate like Littlefinger for just the rest and you should hate him. Like he's just a snake. But yeah, anyways. Okay, cool.
But I mean, you love
to hate him.
But I love the difference between, because at the beginning you're not sure if you don't like Littlefinger or the guy that looks like Pat.
Varys. I said it's not. What was I saying?
The difference between Littlefinger and Varys.
No. What was what I think the name was?
Viserys.
There's
a lot of V's.
Varys.
But you like how they tag team, how Varys and Littlefinger are going back and forth. Because you're not really at that time, you're not really sure who's like the guy and who's not. But
They
at the
always
same
came
time,
off to me as like tit for tat. Like they always came off as like they're at the same level.
they're button heads.
They're in the small council,
Yeah.
but
They all think they're going to get the throne.
yeah.
Which, Varys at the throne would be interesting.
That was it. That was Ned Stark. He was the catalyst of the fall of House Stark.
Definitely.
Unfortunately, it's not ultimately like a fall of the house. It was just like the entirety of Game of Thrones was just like how much can we put these Stark children through?
Right.
Like,
It's almost like the Pixar theory of like how Pixar makes a movie where they just take the good guys and then they just they take them down and then further and then further and they just keep going so that they have this massive win at the end and then you go, oh my gosh, it was worth it.
so I think from Ned we'll go to the Red Wedding again.
Right.
And then we're not talking about anything we just talked about, but I think Rob, he was so close to being like
He was
a
perfect.
little miniature Ned and to like to be the guy that you were rooting for. But upon second watch, like first watch, I didn't feel this way. I was
First
like,
watch, I was like,
how
he's
can they
perfect.
massacre him like
He's
this?
perfect.
Like they did him so dirty. But upon rewatch, it's almost like the gods were out to get whatever Stark like broke their word or like wasn't honorable in some type
It was
of
like,
way.
I think it was, in my opinion, it was him. He married the health care lady.
Yeah.
And then it was after he cut off the Karstark guy's head.
Yeah.
And that's where just like it completely fell apart.
That's where you knew the whole thing was gonna fall apart.
Right there, you knew it was all over.
See, you don't want to talk about the Irishman ever? You just want
We could.
Yeah, exactly.
It's on the
Anyways,
wall.
sorry.
But like it's upon first watch, we were like, no, he was perfect. But then you're sitting there going the second time, and you're, oh
did it to
yeah,
himself.
oh yeah, this was definitely coming. It was like something had to happen. And then he denies the Filch from Harry Potter's wife for his daughter. So it's like, dude,
They had to,
he
like-
went against his word.
Yeah.
That was the big thing, and that's what his father always was perfect at. He never went against his word ever.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah, no, that was what happened. Like they needed to get across the bridge. It was like remember old troll that lives under the bridge. So I went to Filch. I'm gonna marry your daughter, and then he broke his word to marry that girl. And I think, yeah, upon second rewatch, knowing everything that happens and knowing that the show is still good after the Red Wedding, it's like yeah, like I hate to say it, but he like had it coming in a sense,
Unfortunately.
and that's really unfortunate because he was so handsome, so good looking. He should have been on the Iron Throne. Lots of children. Show the scenes.
Well, he ended up doing Cinderella instead.
Yes, he's in the live action Cinderella. And we would just
He died in Game of Thrones and then he did Cinderella, right? Is that what it is? Okay, I thought that's what it was. But he looks
so hot.
he looks older in Game of Thrones, so I don't know if that's right.
They probably rugged him up. well, the next topic is Sansa. So her growth from being like a naive girl to a political player. And the first time there's a ton of there. I don't know if you're on this side of the internet. People hate Sansa. People crap on her all day long, and they're just like, she's just like a bee, and like she's selfish, and this. She is a child. Like
at the very start, well,
when she's in King's Landing, she's a little girl with like these dreams of how
the stereotypical prince and wife, and then you end up in the castle. She thinks it's a Disney movie, and it's far from that.
It is far from it, and
Cersei is the perfect person to explain that to her, because she's been through stuff too. But Cersei's terrible. But yeah.
Cersei's so fun to hate. Like Cersei's like it's like I love to hear. You could not do without Lena. Is it Lena Headey?
I think that's her name. Yeah.
She's like perfect. It's not a show without her.
There's not one person in the entire Game of Thrones that does not
give 110%.
No, every actor in that show nails their part. Yeah. Every single one of them. There's not a bad part in that entire show.
And so like last episode we were talking about I was talking about how Palpatine was kind of like the puppet master. Cersei is Sansa's like Palpatine. Yes. She is like pulling all these strings, and it like you said, like she was in the similar position as her, and I think she's just like we could talk about we'll talk about the Lannisters in another episode and just their dedication to their house surviving and like being the top dog. But yeah, no, Sansa, I'll never give her crap, and I think even like upon second rewatch, she really was just a girl that like had this idea of
she had to grow up way too fast. That's the issue.
And
that's the big thing.
She had to grow up way too fast, and she did that. Like at the end of the series, she's like really like a hard ass political player, and there's a point. It's when Daenerys comes to Winterfell.
Oh, yeah.
And the first time I watched it, I was like, why is she being so mean to Daenerys?
She was
like,
being mean to her.
Yeah, but now like. So, like I said, season 5 of Game of Thrones is where Tyler and I start to, like, deviate from each other, which is fine. Imagine, though, this girl with dragons coming into your home and being like, I want your people who, like, I want them to come fight in King's Landing. Like, yeah, I'll help you with the Nightcrawl or the White Walkers, who are everyone's problem. Not just your problem, by the way. You're just closest to them, but they're everyone's problem. I'll help you with them, but you're going to march to King's Landing with me. No, I'm not. My people need time to. Can we have like 2 weeks to rest? And Dany's like, no, they go now. And then your brother is taking her side over your side. Which, don't get me wrong.
She hasn't seen her brother.
I would expect you to take my side, but I see where Sansa's coming from. And I don't know. I think that she's like, as soon as she offs Littlefinger, she's just a huge political player.
She's running the show at that point. Totally.
I would have liked to have seen her on the Iron Throne instead of Bran. Yes, and I know that she's at Winterfell doing her thing. I would rather see a rock.
Someone else other than Bran.
Yeah. And
I'd rather see Varys than Bran.
He's not like president, and even he.
He's present.
No, he's not. Even he says, like, one of my favorite lines from Game of Thrones is when he's like,
why do you think I came all this way?
No, it's when he's like, I think is it Theon he's talking to someone, and he says, don't envy me, like I live mostly in the past now.
Yes, I think it's right before the Night King shows up, and that's where Theon, I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about it later, but like, it's like Theon has like a good arc, technically, and it's awful, and I feel like that would just be an episode of itself, just talking about who has the biggest arc. But
same for the pod.
Right.
Okay, so that was Sansa. We'll talk about Arya next. So she has a revenge arc, and it's awesome. And so how did trauma help shape Arya's like entire identity? And there's no way that you can like properly encapsulate into words, I think, like what watching your father get beheaded would do to a girl.
Right. Well, she didn't technically see it. What's his name covered her face, but like, you heard it. She saw the entire thing happen. She's another person where she had to grow up too fast, and it was but she was also kind of one of the guys in a way, because she was tomboy. A little bit, And I think that's what she was always into. And it's like, sticking with the pointy end.
Yeah.
And then she hung out with the Hound, and that entire like series
It's like one of your
of it's
favorite
awesome. I love
Yeah.
that part because it's
I love
like
when she goes and she's like one of the faceless people.
yeah,
Those scenes are
the
like
well,
my
what's
favorite.
that guy?
Jacqueline Hagar or Jacqueline Hagar.
Yeah,
or something like that.
he's awesome.
What is his name?
He's pretty
Oh, and
sweet.
he's so cute.
And he was in what's it called? Stranger Things. I forgot because he was in the Russian prison. But yeah,
Yes.
that guy's really good in that role.
Yeah.
He'd play a good Jesus, honestly. I always think that. He would play a good Jesus.
We said that.
Because he kind of looks like him in The Faceless Man. But,
Yeah.
that's
So
top tier.
but they help
Ari.
her like so it's like she has this revenge to her like after Ned gets his head cut off is like just like a really jagged rock. It's like the faceless man and even the hounds that help her kind of like take that rock and like smooth it out and like make it actually malleably they make it into something that she can like actually use to check off like who taught her about the list of people? Who taught her to say their name every single night before she went to bed? It was like when she was in
Was it
that
the
prison
Faceless
in
Man?
Thailand.
No? Was it The Faceless Man? No?
I
Maybe
feel like
not.
was it the guy that like had them in the cages when she was with
Oh, the Lord of Light guys?
was it one of them?
Might have been one of them. I forget. Because they had the Faceless Man in one of the cages, and he saved that guy's life, which is how she gets the 3 death things. But which why she didn't wish for Joffrey and
Roll down credits.
I know. Right. Would have been game over. But,
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, she hates Joffrey and Cersei already because
Makes
remember
sense.
they were supposed to kill her dire wolf.
And well, right, the fight at the very beginning, and then Ned does. He does smoke it. So.
Well, he smokes Sansa's, but then hers is like.
Oh no, hers is just off wandering around, and then
Yeah.
she sees it in the last season, and then
They should have like brought her back a little bit more. But she did tell her like go away and don't come back. So
Right.
like for her to come back, whatever.
I forgot about that. And that was a weird scene. I didn't do that very well.
Yeah.
That was that last season that no one likes. Makes sense. D&D didn't do a good job because they wanted to do a Star Wars movie.
Then I think like the Red Wedding affects Arya and Sansa. Like it feels like deeper than it does Bran or Jon or anything. Like the girls, like Sansa's in such a delicate situation. Like when Joffrey's like, "Oh, I'm gonna get your brother's head and put him up there next," and she's like she's trapped in King's Landing with the people who
And she has to
orchestrated her
say
brother's death.
Specific things too. Like she can't be like, "Oh my God, no, don't do that."
And
She's
then
like, "You're right."
Arya's like kind of riding around, and the Hound's trying to take her to. She's there at the Red Wedding. She doesn't see everything, but she was supposed to get dropped off like to
right.
her mom.
And then she sees Rob walking out with the
The direwolf head.
which
That
is
is the
terrible.
whenever that we watch that scene,
Damn good story though.
it's like I can't even look at. They sewed his direwolf's head to his back.
It's awful.
That was crazy. I feel like the visual that they show with it, whatever. So that's good on Arya. Next is Jon, but it's more like his role in the fall of House Stark. So like, how does Jon Stark and Targaryen heritage create conflict? It creates conflict for Dany.
What do you think? You go first.
So by the time it's like really late in the series that we even find out that he's a Targaryen, so I think Ned knowing that Jon's a Targaryen probably creates some conflict with obviously creates conflict with him and Catelyn, and then Catelyn and Jon, because
Right.
she hates his guts.
For no reason.
Yeah,
But she doesn't know.
whatever. But I don't know. I don't know if like people thinking that like Ned Stark had a bastard. I don't know if that really like played into it. But his Stark and Targaryen heritage, I mean, maybe like when Dany's in Winterfell, maybe feeling like he's not sure where his allegiances are gonna go. Maybe there's some of that in there, but it's not like I would say that Jon he's the only one of Ned Stark's kids that like knows what the hell's going on anymore. Like after
Right.
Rob goes away, Bran's with it. He's just committed to being the three-eyed raven
for the longest time. It really isn't until he gets to the children of, not the children of the corn, but like the where he goes under the tree and then he realizes like he could go into the past with the three-eyed raven guy, and it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But
I almost wish his Targaryen heritage. I almost wish it created more conflict, because I know a lot of fans like thought this about it too, but it's like him being a Targaryen didn't really do anything.
we found out too late and they didn't really expand on it. It was just more like, oh hey, by the way, he's a Targaryen.
Which
He's
is cool. Which is so cool.
It's very cool because what is the quote that they always use? A dragon raised by wolves or something like
Yes.
that, and it's like, oh well, that makes sense
That's
because that's why he would be the perfect king. He doesn't want it. Perfect. He's already humble, and he's part Targaryen. Makes sense. So he's already got the crown on his head, and he's from Winterfell, raised by a bunch of people that basically live in Michigan during the winter 24/7, and then they're good people.
Yeah.
What more could you want?
Yeah. So on that note, like, we wanted to talk about how the Stark children like eventually reclaim their powers at the end. So like, Rob's dead, R.I.P. But like John, like you said, you know,
3 of them or 4 of them.
yeah, John kind of was. It's like I would imagine growing. They obviously don't show flashbacks to when he was growing up, but with how much Catelyn hated him, it's like you're in the crowd, but you're always that one guy that's
Right.
like kind of out. Theon felt the same way,
It's
but
almost like Theon was tighter than John was, though.
with Rob.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah.
At the beginning, it
Catelyn
feels like
didn't
that.
hate Theon, which
No.
works like
Because he's almost worse. He's way worse, technically.
well, like he's a ward to them through like that conflict that they had. So like, I don't know. I'd be meaner to him. Damn.
Right.
But yeah, like John's like in the group, but always kind of on the outside. And so now, like at the end of the series, he's like with his outsiders, but he's like in the group. You know, like kind of like a role reversal. And then, like, is that how you see it? Like with him, with the wildlings,
Yes.
wildlings.
Because that's another reason why he deserves to be king. Because it's like, okay, he connected the most hated people north of the wall, and it's like, okay, he got them to get along, and he lived with them, hung out with them. And that's one of my favorite scenes in Game of Thrones is when Stannis shows up with the wildlings, and he's like, all right, here's the head wildling guy. I can't remember his name. And he's just like, what do you think I should do with him? He's like, this man could have killed me several times, but I think you should, listen to what he has to say and talk to him just like a normal guy.
Yeah.
Because you might learn something. And it ends up working out for the 3 of them at the time. But I think that's why John was he was the good guy in the end the entire time.
Yeah.
Now, did it work out for him? No, should have, but technically could have went to Danny too. So.
Yeah. Sansa, how do you think she reclaimed her power in the end? I see it as like kind of like a 20-year-old experience. Like you want it, like you want to get out of your hometown so bad.
That's a good
and then you go and see somewhere else and you're like, oh, I actually just want to be home. And I think honestly, and two, so much abuse happened to Sansa. We didn't even talk about what Ramsay did to that girl.
Right.
And that dude was a freak. And so I think like home is where she's safe. You know what another one of my favorite quotes is from Sansa, and it's when she's with Ramsay and like dining with his dad and like stepmom, and they're like, oh, you must be so like afraid, like you're in this place with strange people, and she's like, this is my home, like you guys are the weirdos.
It's like, I'm in my home, but I see strange people.
Or when Ramsay's little girlfriend is like helping her with the bath, and she's trying to like threaten her, and she's like, this is my home, you don't scare me, like you can't scare me here. I love that. And so I think Sansa's just she 180'd from, like, she wanted to get out so bad, and now she is at home and like ruling the place and thriving, and yeah, I love that for her.
And she deserved it, because she went from King's Landing, which was crap, to Winterfell, which was ended up being the same thing though, with Ramsay and all those goofballs. So it ended up being worse.
Era was crazy.
Because it was the same thing, yet in her own home. That was the sad part. It was almost worse.
It is almost worse. I would think so. Like if bad things happen to you when you're like outside of home, okay, cool, like one thing. But like in your home. Crazy.
It's awful. But with Arya, what do you think with her? How did she end up
I just think
winning
like,
in the end?
I love what they show. I wish we would have gotten like an Arya show of her.
Going past the map.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think like she kind of for me too though. I love her, but it's almost like she went through like a brand type thing where her personality just is so different after being with like the many-faced god that she's kind of like I don't know how to describe it. She's not very she's very removed, very
She is from the entire picture in a way, because she's
but even
off
just
doing,
emotionally.
she's kind of
She's
off doing
aloof.
side missions in a way.
She's more aloof now.
But she learns to be like a true warrior, and but she ends up hanging out with some of the best warriors in all of Westeros, with the Hound and what's her name?
Yeah.
The big lady,
And,
Brienne of Tarth.
yeah.
And she's awesome too.
Yeah. I think Arya like kind of got everything she wanted. Like even in the first season of Game of Thrones, when the boys are practicing archery,
Yeah.
she like comes out and shoots like a
That's what
bullseye.
she
That's
wanted
what
to
she
do
always
that the
wanted to
entire
do.
time.
Yeah.
So it's like in the end, she got what she wanted. So
Many-faced God said, "Here, take my knife. Go get me some souls." Yeah, Bran's not on here. I totally forgot about him. He's forgettable a little bit.
well,
It's like he's
His
not
pa-
he's
going
not a
into the
Stark
past
though
was
anymore.
cool.
Really, like he's Bran
that's
Stark,
right.
but he says like I'm not like I am just basically the three-eyed raven. So I think I just didn't really count him. And I think like it's like he says I'm not Bran anymore. You
Right.
know, like so I don't know that he actually got a good ending. Would you want to live like that?
well, I thought that's kind of like the punishment of it is it's like a blessing and a curse to be able to go back, go in the present, and go in the future too. So,
I see it more as like a curse, and I did he know?
but
I
the
guess
thing
what
was he
really
couldn't
walking
walk
into.
because he hated that he couldn't
That's
like walk
true.
around when he's doing the future stuff or looking into the past. He can walk around and be a regular dude, and it's like, well, you can't really hate the guy for that.
Yeah,
So that's why I don't. He's just kind of his own thing.
he's his own thing. He's like an entity now.
And that's why I don't hate the idea of him as king, but it's just
But who
like,
comes after him?
who would be after him?
Yeah.
Because he can't, well, I don't know, he can't procreate, can he? I don't know.
No.
So they would probably have to basically do what they did and nominate a new person.
Which is like not a bad thing. Obviously, it's
I mean, I would go with Tyrion, but
they like wouldn't let him, right?
probably not because he's a
was-
Lannister.
No, it was because he with Daenerys, like she like tossed him in
Oh,
prison.
that's right. Because he technically was treason. So,
Yeah,
but
it's like, do we count that though? Do we count that though?
that last season was just
I know. So, like I said, I haven't read any of the books, but even if I did, Winds of Winter is nowhere close to being done. I'm sure it's still around 65%.
George R. Martin just made a bar, apparently called Milk of the Poppy. He's doing everything but writing the book. And it's like,
We can go to the bar when you're done.
whatever. It's getting old. I
But I-
don't know if it's gonna happen. I really don't.
But I wonder who he would have put on the throne. And like, we didn't even mention it because this episode isn't about Daenerys. But when we do talk about Daenerys, I will disclaim it that supposedly in the books, like the shows just completely deviate. Like he describes her as just like she's his princess, and then the shows they kind of make the turn towards madness. We'll talk about it later. I respect the turn to madness. Tyler does not as much. But okay, let's wrap up the Starks. Did they ultimately win in the end? Win in quotations.
Based on Westeros like stuff, yes, because there's a Stark on the Iron Throne. Now, is it the one you wanted? Probably not, but
It'll do for now.
it's fine.
Yeah.
I still think it should have been Jon or Dany in the end, but yeah, I would say
In
that
terms of
they-
like the Game of
the
Thrones,
Game of Thrones,
the Starks technically.
I still think they won.
But I think they lost a lot. They're like
Right.
Bran's who's the youngest Stark? What's this? It's not I want to say Riddock, but I think that's from my book and that's not right.
It's something like that.
Yeah.
The one that gets smoked by
Barely on it. By Ramsay.
Ramsay.
Yeah.
I think he is the youngest.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
He gets smoked, Rob gets smoked.
Their dad, their mom,
All the kids like
all
go
the
through
wolves,
a
it's
lot of stuff.
or Ghost and Aryas are all gone.
Yeah.
So
So like technically they win, but it's like
at what cost?
yeah,
Sure.
they're like limping towards the finish line. I agree. I agree with everything you said. And I think that's that. So you have to let us know that question. Did the Starks win? Or what do you think?
They won. They won in the end. It just wasn't great.
Let them
but,
have an opinion.
I mean, I don't know. Next, I think we should be talking about the Lannisters because I could go on about. Maybe that's our next episode. Maybe we talk about the Lannisters and how they're just seen as bad people, but they're also trying to do the right thing.
Tyler just wants to talk about
Tywin.
Yeah, Tywin.
Tywin's
He
the
doesn't
best
even want to
character.
talk about any other.
Tywin, I also love Charles Dance, the guy that plays him. I think he just kills that role. It's every
Yes.
scene he is in is so
And he's
good.
in the movie Me Before You. With,
He was the dad, and I was like, what?
Daenerys Targaryen.
Yeah, that's right. With Danny.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So it's funny
Amelia
to see
Clark.
those two on screen. And Tyler had never seen it before. And
I
he's
was
like,
like, oh, no way.
oh my
He's like,
gosh.
and he's walking in like, and who are you? It's like, you know exactly who that girl is.
That's not a dragon queen. Like, stop. Okay.
Yeah.
This was fun.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. The council is adjourned.